I don't want a condo, okay? Because I came from the West. I lived in a house in the West. I don't want to live in a condo. I want to live in a house with a garden. And I want the closest thing possible to owning it because I want it to feel like it's my house. I want to decorate it. I want to do renovations on it. So I want assurance that no one's going to bother me. Can anyone disrupt my enjoyment of this property? As it stands, non-Thai nationals are currently not permitted to own land in Thailand. But despite this, the reality in Thailand is that houses are being sold to foreigners all the time.
True.
So what in the world is going on here? Well, there's the legal gymnastics way of owning a house using a Thai company. We'll address that a little bit. But more importantly, there are certain ownership structures that are perfectly legal and done all the time. And that's what we're going to focus on. So I'm joined by Kun Sirichod, who's a property lawyer, who's going to break down the different ways that you can structure your ownership of a property that is perfectly legal and where your property rights are protected throughout the entire ownership duration, so that you don't just wake up one day, find yourself homeless because you just got screwed over by your Thai wife or the Thai government. And of course, if you need a lawyer to sort this all out, you can get in contact with Kun Sirichod via the link in the video description or go to jetgunther.com. Kun Sirichod, thank you so much for joining us here.
My pleasure,
Let's address the Thai company setup structure there. We know it's kind of a gray area and it's being done a lot. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your warnings about this?
Okay, this is quite common for foreigners to hold the ownership of the property in Thailand. I see it quite often, and I will say about 30 to 50% of foreigners in Thailand, they use this structure to hold the ownership of the property, and also including using this structure to hold the ownership of the condominium units all together, and they do like a developer and renting out business. It is an option if there is no other better choice in your circumstances, but it's not like 100% legal. There's something that you must understand, that the maximum percentage that you can hold the shares of the company must not be higher than 49%, and then you have to let the 51% hold by Thai national person. So whether it is your nominees or your family members, as long as they are Thai, is fine. But you must be very careful to select the nominee, because not everyone is good, and they will not going to cheat you.
Yeah, because that's a risk right there, because you're not owning a majority share of it. So you really have to have a good relationship with your nominee.
Yeah, true.
And that's a big risk right there already.
True.
So the risk is in the structure itself, but also is there a risk in reality in terms of the government cracking down on this type of ownership structure?
It happens from time to time that the Thai government will crack down or investigate in those business, especially with the business with foreigners involved, and they have no real business. They are not doing a business, but they just set up a company to hold the ownership of the property, generate no income. Not so long, maybe like 3 years or 5 years after that, the department business development will report these activities to the central government, and then they will investigate into your business and see whether you're acting or you're operating any business. If not, then they will just strike off your business, or maybe like get you in trouble in both civil and criminal offense.
Yeah. It does sound like it has some significant risks.
Yeah. So you must be very careful, and then you have to consult with a property lawyer or proper lawyer before taking this option. Yeah.
Right. And obviously this is not your legal advice or anything, but I'm just making an observation that so many people are doing this, and it's been fine for them for years and years and years now. But we don't know because it's not an official way. Let's now move to the more legal ways that you can own property. So from what I hear, there are 4 ways. There's your leasing
both land and
the house
for 30 years.
For 30 years.
Yeah, up to 30 years, and then lease the land and own the house. And then the third would be
usufruct, where
the foreigner can use the land and the house up to 30 years. It's very similar to the lease option, but the usufruct can be no payment, like no consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, but the lease agreement, there must be rent at all time.
Okay.
There must be rent.
Meaning payment?
There must be payment as a consideration of the lease. But the usufruct, you don't need to have a rent or a payment to the landlord.
Okay.
Yeah, but when there is no payment, if one party breached the agreement, then it's quite difficult for you to like gain something because you didn't pay much to the property owner, right? You just use it for free. Then how can you damages from this too much? The judge wouldn't give you a lot. Superficie is just for a foreigner to have the right on the land to build something on the land and then enjoy the use of the construction or the building over the land.
I see. Okay. So now let's say I'm a foreigner coming to consult you. You already told me that the company ownership option is okay, but there are some risks. Better to do it the legal way. And there's 4 ways. Which one out of the 4 should I go for depending on the situation?
I find it quite interesting that many people, they choose lease option, lease both the land and house, or lease the land and own the house. This is very common, and I quite agree with this option.
Okay.
Because for foreigner, they feel comfortable with the lease option. They know like the principle of lease agreements, but they don't very familiar. They are not very familiar with usufruct and superficie. They would not understand the concept of it. And it makes quite difficult to understand when there is a case to the court. Okay, everyone understand what lease means, and they can compare with their own country or their own law, right? Whether it's good or bad, what the term and condition of the lease should be, so they will understand the concept, which is I agree. And then you have to pay something to government to protect your right. If you lease the land from the landlord directly, you're quite safe.
Now, in the case of, let's say, I'm looking at a house with a real estate developer. It's a company, it's a project with all these houses. Would that person be the owner? So are you leasing it from the developer? Is it that straightforward?
For the developer who register the land under the Land Allocation Act, they cannot lease the land to you for 30 years. They can only sell. Okay, they can only sell freehold. So you have to set up a company.
Okay.
Yeah, or have your family member to hold the ownership of the land and the construction if you really want to buy from a housing estate. Yeah, and the other type is they don't subdivide the land under the Land Allocation Act. So the developer can lease the land to you for 30 years, or they can lease both the land and the house, or lease the land and you own the structure. This concept or this structure happen quite a lot in Hua Hin or Prachuap, Cha'am or Pattaya or Phuket. This happened quite a lot, that they lease the land to foreigners for 30 years with the renewal clause, and then let the foreigner hold the ownership of the house or the villa.
Okay, so just to confirm, so you're saying in these holiday markets, it's typical for the developers to not register under the Land Allocation Act
ครับ
so that they can lease to foreigners.
yeah
So I'm gathering, it sounds like this is a common practice that is done
yeah
as a standard.
yeah they know yeah
They know. I know. Because you look at some projects, all your neighbors are Falang
foreigner ใช่ค
or
รับ
foreigner mode. And you're wondering like how did they this is it, right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so that sounds a little bit better now. So now I'm a foreigner, I realize, okay, developers, they have these schemes
Yeah.
and it's perfectly legal,
Yeah.
30 years and all like
Yeah.
that. We'll address what to do after 30 years later. And okay, what about if you're leasing it from a individual Thai person?
Okay, so many individual Thai person they want to sell like freehold, just sell. They don't want to lease for 30 years because they are worried about their tax liabilities. When you lease the property, you have to report the tax and pay tax every year, and this will be part of your personal income tax. And second, they have to pay for property tax. And third, it will be like, what if you don't pay the rent, or even if you pay one lump sum payment, they just worry that what if you will use the house for illegal purposes or illegal businesses. They don't want to be involved. It's just like, okay, I want to sell it to you, so this is your choice to choose what option you would take. And you should have like your own lawyer to help provide advice.
So it sounds to me that individual Thai sellers, they don't want to bother. They want to sell,
normally.
be done with it.
And
Okay.
yeah.
So it sounds to me that it's mostly developers that know that they are going to market these to foreigners. So they don't register under the Land Allocation Act and they set up a 30-year clause or whatever like that.
Yes. They know it's their practice, it's their business.
Okay. We're getting onto something now. We're uncovering the way to do it legally. Okay. So now, we've uncovered like the most probable way to do it is leasing. Now to get a little bit more nuanced again, within these developers that lease the property to, is it more common to them to offer lease on house and land or the other one, lease on land and own the house?
You can speak to the developer or the salesperson the first time you met them, like what option are you selling? Ask this question on the day one that you met them, and then leave the author issue with your lawyer, so your lawyer can handle and then liaise with the developer how to set up the proper option.
Okay. I see. All right. I'm starting to understand now. There's these options. Let's now talk about the lease. So what are the rights that I have? What are my property rights while I'm leasing the property?
As long as you comply with the lease agreement, as long as you pay the rent and you behave nicely, you're not like doing like illegal business or like creating too much nuisance to your neighbor. I mean, if you conduct quite proper and you pay the rent on time, the lease will be good for you, and then will help protect your rights, and then you'll be like you enjoy your staying in the property. That's all.
You use the word rent, paying the rent. Does that mean that you're paying rent monthly, or is it yearly, or you're paying a flat fee in the beginning?
It can be all options, but most likely when you lease for 30 years, the landlord will ask you to pay the full amount upfront as a lump sum payment. But there are some cases that the landlord and the leasee will agree to pay on a yearly basis. On a yearly basis, or every 3 years or every 5 years. That is also an option. But for short-term lease, like less than 1 year, it will normally pay on monthly basis. There are not many people will pay like on a yearly basis unless they will get a good commission or get a good price. They'll get a better price if they pay like 1 year in advance. Yeah, that's also possible. It's not illegal. It's not against the law.
So it sounds to me like leasing is just long-term renting,
Yes.
where you often just pay up front.
Yeah.
So how is leasing different from owning?
There are some countries in this world that they don't have freehold ownership, right? They only have leasehold. But here in Thailand, we have freehold and leasehold. So when you say owning the property, you want to hold like forever. You cannot have that ownership on the land and the house at the current law. Okay, at the present you cannot. But if you want to have like ownership, like as you own it, then you have to buy condominium unit. Then you can have like a freehold. Yeah, there's no other choice now. There's no other choice. So if you want to feel like you own something, you have to choose condominium unit.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you really want, I still want a house and own something, maybe you have to own a building, like the house or the villa, but not own the land.
I see.
Right? But if you still want to own the land and the house, it's not doable. I mean, you cannot have that. You must admit that you cannot have that privilege for now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that's fine because there is this. We'll talk about the law maybe being changed later on here. But okay, let's just say that. All right, I don't want a condo, okay? Because I came from the West. I lived in a house in the West. I don't want to live in a condo. I want to live in a house with a garden. And I want the closest thing possible to owning it because I want it to feel like it's my house. I want to decorate it. I want to do renovations on it. So I want assurance that in this 30 years, no one's going to bother me. That if I sign this lease, pay upfront for 30 years, can anyone disrupt my enjoyment of this property? As long as if I follow the rules of the lease for 30 years, can anyone disrupt my rights during the 30 years?
In principle, there should be no one interrupt your right over the leasehold if you comply with the lease agreement, right? In principle, but there are some cases that if you fail to comply with the agreement, you need to read it carefully, like what means the material issues to terminate the agreement. For example, or they don't let you sublease, but you sublease, or they don't allow you to have a restaurant or bar, but you want to do that. That might be like a material issue of the agreement. So if you breach and then the landlord give you a notice 1 or 2 times, then there's a chance that they will want to terminate the agreement. And then whether the landlord will have to refund you the payment that you have paid or not, that is also an issue that we need to talk, because you breach the agreement, the court would not give you like the full amount that you paid to the landlord, but the court may give you proportionate, not a lot, but that you may get something back if you breach. But if you are doing something illegal business, it may be deemed that you breach the law as well. And the law is not going to protect you. You may not get anything back from the landlord.
So it sounds to me now, it's more clear now that leasing is just renting long term. But the benefit of that is you have the long term assurance that you're going to live in this property for up to 30 years. And so long as you abide by the lease, then you're good. You get to enjoy this property up to 30 years. So let's expand on those parts that you just said here. First of all, obviously, if I don't meet my obligations in the lease, there is a chance that the owner can terminate the lease. But then there's external things where on the other side. So let's say, for example, what if the landowner sells the property to someone else and the lease is still in place, what happens to the lease in that case?
If you register the lease at the land office, I mean, for example, like if you lease for more than 3 years, right, or register for 30 years, then whether the landlord sell the property to a third party, you still have the right over the land. You still be the leasee, okay, and the new owner will have to accept that condition, except that there will be the lease agreement attached to the title deed.
So can the new owner change the existing terms of the lease?
Cannot. For the 30-year lease, they cannot change the term of and the condition of the lease, because the new landlord will have to accept both the right and obligation. That they must admit that there is a lease agreement as an attachment or liens or encumbrance over the property.
Does this also go to short-term leases, even down to 10 years, 5 years, or even 1 year, right? Like in condos, right? Like people buy and sell condos all the time, and people market it as sell with
tenant.
With tenant.
Yes.
Can the new owner change the terms of that lease during its duration?
Not during the terms of the lease agreement.
I see.
You can change the terms and conditions later after the expiration of the lease term.
I see. All right. So we covered that. If it's transferred, what if it was confiscated? Let's say the owner went bankrupt or lost a gamble or something, and it was confiscated. Does the lease still apply?
In case that the landlord go bankrupt, and then the creditors will use the land to sell in auction, but the buyer will have to admit that there is a lease on this property. On this property, so it will go with the land. So don't worry. Or in some cases that there is a clause in the lease agreement that this is the clause to terminate the agreement. So if the lease agreement is terminated, then you still have the lease agreement. The terms of the lease agreement still continue. Then you are entitled to get some money back for the unused period, but you have paid the rent in advance, right? So you have the right in the lease agreement, but you have to join with other creditors to collect the money from the landlord. So we don't know how much the landlord will have like assets at that time. You got what I mean? This is quite difficult.
It is a bit difficult. And is this a real risk to consider? Is this a risk that needs to be considered?
This must have been addressed in the agreement. Like, what if the landlord go bankrupt? What will happen? If it doesn't say anything in the agreement, then the lease agreement will attach with the property. Wherever the property sold to a third party, you as the lessee still have the right over the property.
Now, lawyers such as yourself would make sure that this point is addressed.
That will be part of the agreement.
Now, what happens if the lease is expired after 30 years? Obviously, let's say if I like this property, I would like to renew it. Is there a guarantee that I can renew it?
Okay. The renewal clause is a personal arrangement. It's personal. It's not binding with third party, and it cannot be registered at the land office. So it means that it's not guaranteed. It can be renewed only if the landlord and you go to the land office and register it again for 30 years. Whether there will be any consideration or not, that should be described in the original lease agreement or like addendum between you and the lessor.
So it sounds to me it's kind of just like a gentleman's agreement.
ใช่ครับ
ใช่ไหม?
Yeah.
So I see some of these developments where they advertise 90-year ownership. They're just so they're speaking the truth about the first 30 years. The rest is like, yeah, we probably will.
Yeah, true.
Well, we will.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
Sabai.
Yeah, sabai.
Okay, so 30 years for sure. It's registered in the land office. There's a lawyer. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The next term, that's we'll see. There's no guarantee.
For now, yeah.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
For now, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not automatically renewed.
It's not automatically renewed.
Yes.
Okay. So I understand now. If I'm leasing the house and leasing the land, I can know that, okay, fine. I should prepare to maybe give it up after 30 years. But, maybe if there's a good relationship, we'll just keep it. Fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Fine. But what happens if I do in the other agreement where I lease the land but own the house? What would happen then when the 30 years is up?
Okay, you should raise this issue in the lease agreement. Okay, like upon the expiration of the lease term and we cannot renew the agreement, what will happen with the house? Whether it will go to the landlord or you have to remove the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Demolish it.
You leave to the house or give it to the landlord or demolish, or you have to pay for the lease and the rent for another 30 years, like to renew, right? So you can renew the leasehold, and then you can put the house on it, right? You got what I mean? Yeah. So that is something you need to talk with the seller from the beginning.
Can I sell the house to the owner?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah?
Can.
So let's say I lease a land, I build a house if I own, and it's a nice house. Wow, really beautiful. And the owner wants it after 30 years. Can you write an agreement after 30 years that we will sell it at some kind of price?
Then how much? You want to fix it in the beginning, or you will leave it like blank? If you leave it blank, then in the next 30 years we have to see what will happen, right? Who knows the condition of the house, right? You may have paid quite a lot nowadays, but in the future the condition of the house is not very good, or maybe the prices go up because you maintain the house very good.
So there is another process step there where you can, if you want to sell it, there's a way that you can maybe figure out the price in the beginning or later or whatever.
Yeah. You can like give the house to the landlord. For example, like this also happened to some of my clients. Their friend, the landlord is the friend of the landowner, is a non-Thai national person. So at the end of the lease for 30 years, they will give the house to the landlord.
It's a very good friend.
Yeah. Because you must understand that the landlord may lease the land for like a lower price, right? They didn't get a lot because they just lease the land. They don't build a house and then lease both the land and the house. You got what I mean? They just lease the land to you, and then the land price is not that much. Maybe just 1 to 2 million, and then you build like a beautiful house. Yeah, and at the end you may want to give this to your friend. That's also happened. Or if not, then you have to remove or demolish
it.
Yeah, and make it clear as if there's no house on this land, and then you have to pay for the demolition.
Right.
So if you cannot agree with the landlord, then the landlord will just say, okay, I don't care. You have to demolish.
So the options are: be a very, very nice friend and give it. Be an okay friend and demolish it. And be a businessman and sell it.
Sell it.
Those are the options. Okay,
I'm
okay. I understand the concept of leasing now. It's basically just long-term rent. It gives guarantee that I can enjoy this property up to 30 years. I pay up front, and this is my place, and I will abide by the rules. That sounds good.